There, welcome to the CalRecycle-Smart advertising campaign first webinar, where we'll introduce the ad campaign and some of the research and the thinking behind what we've put together, go over what we've put together, and also take some questions in the second half. So I'm Maria West. I'm the Communications Director for CalRecycle. And with me is Christina Files. She is the Information Officer over Creative Services and the manager of this contract with Runyon Saltzman.
Hey everybody, we're looking forward to meeting with you today and sharing about the campaign. So we'll get going in just a moment as people are joining, and I'm going to go ahead and get our presentation set up. Just want to confirm, Maria, can you see my screen?
Yes, it looks like it's cut off. Half of it's cut off.
Oh.
That's happened to me before in GoTo.
Let me try this again.
You might need to do it from that view if we want to see the whole thing. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we did have 270 attendees registered, and so far we have just about half of that. So we should probably wait a couple of minutes. Looks like we're getting people jumping on quickly.
Maria,
perfect.
How about now?
Looks like perfect.
Okay, great.
So again, if you're just joining us, we are introducing the iRecycleSmart campaign today and talking to you about what the research and thinking is behind the campaign, the methodology that we're using to approach behavior change, and just general information. And then also we'll talk a little bit about what's to come with organics, and then additionally take your questions at the end. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. We had a lot of people had registered, so we should probably just get started, and this will be recorded as well and available to anyone who couldn't attend today.
Okay, are we back on?
Yes, and it looks perfect. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us today. Next slide, please. I'm Maria West, and Christina Files is also joining us. If you have questions now or at any time throughout this presentation, please either email them to iRecycleSmart@calrecycle.ca.gov or go to the question section in GoToMeeting. They can be submitted at any time. So this campaign's actually the foundation of it started before I started as communication director 2.5 years ago, with the idea that with everything that's been happening in recycling, that there needed to be a number of different ways CalRecycle addressed it. I don't know if anybody isn't muted, but there seems to be some background noise. So if you aren't muted, please mute yourself. Thank you. And so the idea was to help people recycle right, give them the most up-to-date information possible, and if possible, find a way to help people find their local program information, because California is such a large state, and there are so many different ways that you can meet your diversion mandates, that the recycling programs look different throughout the state. So the campaign goals were proper recycling, and also to drive traffic to the website for tips and links to local recycling programs. So the messaging for the campaign was empty and dry, and we'll get into a little bit about why these are, but proper sorting to increase recycling, and food scrap recycling. So we'd always intended to reduce contamination both through reducing the liquid and gunk solids that get on recycling, and then also reduce contamination of the wrong types of materials in recycling bins. And then additionally introduce this concept of food waste, yard waste fight being part of the climate fight, and letting people know that it will start food and yard waste recycling. Next slide, please. So the campaign overview will have research, our strategy. We'll also talk about how we developed the different tools that you'll see and you've been given. And we'll talk a little bit about the earned media that we've done as a department recently, and some of the support that we will give you as jurisdictions, local cities and counties, and other types of jurisdictions in the coming year. Next slide. So really, a lot of this campaign started even before we did an RFP, a request for proposal from advertising agencies. When Christina, who is presenting with me today, did some focus groups with both Northern and Southern California cities. And what was said again and again is outreach campaigns had really not moved the needle on what was being thrown away versus put into recycling bins. But there was one exception. There were several cities that said that they had used community-based social marketing research methods to maximize behavior change, and that was the only way they had seen behavior change. So we looked into this. We got some trainings. We had a subcontractor who did the CBSM research methodology, and we really used from those principles. We decided to select specific behaviors to target. That's really important, getting the not just the overall message, but the specific steps messaged. Identify the barriers and benefits to behaviors, developing strategies to reduce those barriers, and launching the most cost-effective strategies while conducting ongoing evaluation. Next slide, please. So our research really included a number of different avenues. We started out with expert surveys to get a lay of the land, what the issues were. We also did expert interviews. This was all done by the contractor. And then Christina and I followed up with some expert interviews ourselves, just to kind of understand some of the surprises we found in that interview strategy process. Then we also did a web survey and a residential survey. Food waste survey was part of that. And we also had a rural survey, though the rural, with the rural areas, so often they don't have the collection programs, but we were looking into sort of some of the attitudes and behaviors as well. So when we did this in both English and Spanish. We actually, specifically for the focus groups, we surveyed people with different types of systems: multifamily, 2-bin systems, single family versus multifamily 3-bin systems. We did English and Spanish speaking groups, and that was a very kind of long process. We spent about 7 months in doing all of that work. Next slide, please. And so in doing all of that, yeah, this is what I just went over. So this is basically what we did to find out exactly what the attitudes were, what the beliefs were, and what people were willing to do in the future. Next slide. So the research results for our expert and stakeholder survey showed that the top issues were plastic bags and food-related plastic bag film packaging, and then food and liquid residue, our top contaminants in recycling bins. Jurisdictions reported a 20 to 25% curbside contamination rate, and MRFs reported landfilling up to 20% of recyclables due to contamination. So then on the side of the public, what we heard was that 80% of Californians believe trash is a big problem and recycling makes a difference. 72% say that they recycle everything they know to be recyclable. 69% already empty, rinse, scrape, or dry recyclables. Often we were told that that was for to avoid pests. I was surprised by how many people said, "Oh, I always rinse my recycling because of bugs." So then 74% believe chasing arrows recycling symbol means something is recyclable. They were pretty emphatic. They felt they were doing everything they could and that they knew what they were doing. So some people felt confused, but then, some felt like as long as, and they pick up a plastic bottle and point to that chasing arrow and say, just look for this arrow. This means it's recyclable. So there was a confusion that they didn't know that they had. Items most often confused as being recyclable were plastic bags, pouches, and wrappers. Reaction to food scraps collection is mostly positive, but many have concerns about odors, insects, and pests. Next slide, please. So one of the things that was really important was that we identified the values that people had so we could speak to those values in our communication. The Californians said that they recycle to do their part because it's the right thing to do. We heard again and again a huge pride that people had in recycling, that it was really just what they did, and they didn't really think twice about it or question if they should. They also expressed that they protect our state from litter and trash, in the environment, to protect California's environment for the future of their children and grandchildren. We saw this across the board. It was especially pronounced among the Spanish-speaking focus groups. Again and again, they were saying for their children, they were doing this for the future of their children. And there was a very strong value in those groups because their children also learn to recycle in school. Again and again, we heard people say they learned it in school or their children learned it in school. And in the Spanish-speaking groups, we heard them say they learned it in their English-speaking classes. So there was a big component in that being a way that people get their information. Next slide, please. So the strategy was to target specifically, and this is, I just want to preface this. We have we had a certain amount of money to spend, but in the media market, it doesn't go that far. So we wanted to make sure that we were reaching as many people as we could with as effective and powerful a message as possible. And at the same time, one that applies to every single jurisdiction or all collection jurisdictions that have collection systems across the state. So that's a very, very hard goal to fulfill because there are so many different languages in our state, and then there are so many different recycling options, things that can be recycled in different places. So it was a big task, and so we looked at kind of the most general messaging that would apply across the board, and then we really put our time into creating some effective strategies, effective messages in English and Spanish. But we want you to know that for everything that you see, if there's anything that you want that it's digital, we can translate that into other languages. We won't be able to do versions of the song in other languages or the video with the song in other languages, but for our digital and print assets, we can get those to you in whatever language you need. So far, we've already provided the signage for this, the previous law for 1826, and that can be used for this as well. For 1383, we provided signage for all types of collection systems, whether it's organic or recycling, in 9 different languages. So, can you go back? So again, we're just looking at the emptying, drying, proper sorting directory, and also we wanted to find a way to connect people to their local programs because there's just too much that's different with each program. And then the food and yard waste recycling, which is a part of the campaign that's in progress. Next slide. So I'm going to have Christina come on to talk about this, but we did do media placement statewide. And we want you to understand that we really took some steps to maximize our reach and make sure that we were hitting as many markets as possible with the types of assets, the types of platforms that would really reach as many people as possible, especially in this really changing landscape with COVID, not knowing if we're going to be inside or outside and sitting in front of our TVs and screens for the most part, or venturing out. Christina, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, sure. So with our strategy, we focused primarily on a digital strategy that would really target people where they're at. So you're going to see a pretty diverse spread of content. So we have radio, we have out of home, which includes grocery cart ads, as well as ads that are going to be on bus tails, so the rear end of a bus. Radio and out of home really target people who are not connected digitally to a device. And then we have a lot of our focus is on streaming video. So PSA videos that are going to be broadcast across platforms like Hulu. So they have a lot of repetition on them, and then quite a lot of content through digital ads. So visiting websites, seeing digital ads pop up on the side or the top, as well as a really robust social media content strategy as well, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail. Radio, we're covering the entire state, so northern, central, coastal, and southern California cities. We're covering radio in both PSAs, so we've got radio spots that we've recorded. We also have traffic and weather announcements, as well as NPR support announcements. And all of these are in English and in Spanish, so that we're broadcasting these messages to cover as much of the state as possible. So let us introduce to you our wonderful mascot. I'm going to hand this back over to Maria to introduce Turner the Turtle.
So we wanted to create a campaign that just wasn't messaging, telling people what they should do. We wanted to create something that would be really recognizable and really speak to people's hearts, speak to people's pride in recycling and their ongoing concern for the environment. So we wanted to create a mascot, much like the mascots that we've seen in previous decades for the environment, Smokey the Bear, Woodsy the Owl, and other mascots that appeal to adults. I think it's important to note that mascots aren't just for children. That was a misconception we saw as we were first talking about them. We've seen, the Pillsbury Doughboy, the Geico Gecko, the Taco Bell Chihuahua. There's been so many different mascots that are really targeting adults. But when you have a mascot that's adorable and lovable, it's something that will help open people's hearts and open people's hearts to your message. And in a time when people are being inundated with messages everywhere and have come to tune them out, it's just really important to find a way to stand out, be memorable, and recognizable. So we created a sympathetic animal. As many of you know, turtles are some species that people really connect with the trash in the environment, like the straw up the turtle's nose from a couple of years ago. And there was a long ago picture of a turtle that had a 6-pack ring around his shell that had grown, and his shell had grown misshapen. And then so many people have swum with turtles or have seen turtles in nature. We have all kinds of turtles in our state. It represents not just the coastal sea turtles, but the river and lake turtles, the desert tortoises known for being able to conserve water in that California way. So this is just, this was something that I think seemed the most obvious as a way of connecting people with your behavior can help keep trash out of the environment and help recycle more, and with the ultimate goal of having more recycled within our state and having less trash pollution in our environment. Next slide. I think we skipped a few ahead.
We did. I apologize. Let me get back.
No worries. For the next part, I'm going to show you the website. I'm assuming most people have been on the website, but if you haven't, I'm going to show you the website, and then I'm going to also show you some things that we just added. We added them today just so that we could show them to you. They still need to have sort of one last level of review, but we wanted you to see. So if you haven't been on this, we chose Yosemite as an iconic environmental symbol for California, both in Northern and Southern California. And then we just get into the empty and dry and what can I recycle main messaging. Then we just put some buttons on here to help some of the main questions people often have about recycling, bottle and can recycling, curbside recycling information, where to recycle e-waste, and where to drop off batteries. We added a video, a short 1-minute video that we did on why empty and dry from some requests from jurisdictions on more information on why empty and dry. And then we included some facts at the bottom, just some interesting to know facts. We'll continually update those with new images and new facts as we go through. We've also created this little logo that features Turner and the motto, I do my part, iRecycleSmart. So from here, you can go to your empty and dry tips. And this is a very short page. We generally tried to keep things short, clear, clean, and it just gives you the 2 basic things. Empty and dry, we say no need to rinse, shake or wipe out the liquid or food out of containers, and then let them dry right side up in your recycling bin. That's not necessarily something that's messaged everywhere, but just to give people an idea what that means by drying out, that they have to dry it off themselves. And then the next one is, what can I recycle? So this is a question that people have all the time. We wanted to let people know that there are certain things that are universally recycled in the state. And then there are certain things that you can take to collection sites, and we will add some more of the other program collection sites here. But most of them are also linked on the front page in the information section. And then we have what we're excited about, the check your local recycling info section. So just letting people know what could be in question. We had a request to add, not just have milk cartons, but add non-dairy milk and juice boxes to this section. So we just did that yesterday on the check your local recycling information. And then here's the section for nope, it's not recyclable. So generally these are what we've been told, and we've vetted it and checked again and again for what's absolutely not recyclable in the curbside programs. And then we also included household hazardous waste sections. So what I'd like to say is that we're here to be as supportive of your programs as possible. We don't want to contradict anything that you're doing. If you have something that's you're recycling or you're collecting and recycling and you'd like us to change something, please just let us know. We absolutely want to support your programs to the best degree that we can. The next section that I'm very excited about that can be reached either on the navigation bar or through the button I just used is the local recycling information. So we were hoping we could do an app or something like that. It was beyond the scope of what we could do with this contract, but we did do something that's pretty basic but easy to use, which is you can look up your city or county if in an unincorporated area, and just go ahead and click on that. So Sacramento, I live in unincorporated Sacramento. So you can just I can just click right there, find out what's recyclable in my program. So we have made a few changes to that based on requests from jurisdictions. So if you have any requests for this page too, just please let us know, and we will see what we can make sure that we verify it internally and go from there. This next section is the toolkits. This is if you're a jurisdiction, this is the section that's just for you. We are giving you digital display ads. So these are sort of with some of the most trendy graphics that are happening right now, but we try to include Turner to the greatest degree possible. And it's really just a link to a Google Drive where you can download these ads either in English or Spanish. So we also have social media assets. Some of them are animated GIFs that are just different screens that move through. Then we have radio ads. We have different lengths for radio ads. And let me see if I can open these. Not quickly. Then we have some print assets. So these are the kinds of things like bill stuffers, flyers, postcards that you might want to print out. And then right now we are running ads through on bus tails, and they're the out-of-home advertisement platforms are there for you as well. The assets that have, if you wanted to give those to a local media buyer, where you can place those in your local area in addition to what we're already doing. And then what was just added today was the 5, 15, and 30-second videos. And we will be showing those to you in just a few minutes. So from there, I just wanted to also let you know that this is what we're now in the process of adding, our organics pages. We're going to probably do some visual updates here, but we just wanted to give you a sense of what we're doing with those. We're letting people know that recycling food scraps help to save our planet. We have an infographic. We really wanted to hit that the average family spends about $1,500 a year on food that it throws away, because we really would like to encourage people and always possible to reduce their food waste before they're recycling their food scraps. So planning meals and then recycling the scraps and spoiled food. We have a few tips on how to collect your food scraps and yard waste. Choosing a container that works for you, find a place to store it, check your local program. We're going to include some images of different types of containers. And then we just have one little section on the reason that we're doing all of this for California's climate fight. So we included this GIF that's a NASA animation of how climate change works, the light that comes into the atmosphere, how it's trapped in the atmosphere, some of it reflects back out, and then how climate gases actually warm up the climate, and the more climate gases that are in the environment because of human activities, the worse it gets. So we included some of the top level facts about climate change, that California is experiencing 2 extreme droughts in just the last 10 years. 8 of the 10 largest wildfires in our history were in the last 11 years. And 2021 was the hottest summer on record in California. And then we just have a graphic here kind of showing landfills, connecting them to some of the effects of climate change. And then one of the CBSM points that we use is to talk about how the behavior is already something that others are doing. So we encourage people to join the millions of Californians already recycling their food scraps to save our climate. And then doesn't look like I have a direct link to it. Oh, here. This is another section, what can I recycle? So we have one specifically for the green or food waste bin. So what we start with is where you put your food scraps depends on your local program. So check your local rules, make sure everything that can be recycled actually gets recycled instead of ending up in a landfill. So here we still have links. Those links where many programs, I know many of you already have what you're doing with food and yard waste on your local website. So we just have some of the kind of general things that our local assistance division has let us know are recyclable when people do separate out their scraps. And then here's some of the points that are at issue in plastic bags, specifically the compostable plastic bags. And then what we've been told by our local assistance program often ends up, or sometimes ends up in the green bin or the food waste bin, that definitely shouldn't. We heard one report of an engine block ending up in a green bin. So just some of the things that, just to let people know, these are not things they should put in the green bin, even if we think they maybe should have already known that. So, and then just really fast, we also have the entire site in Spanish. We are just in the process of getting the organics pages finished in Spanish. So thank you for bearing with me as I figured out how to show my screen. We did practice, I promise. So I'll let Christina go back to showing her screen for the PowerPoint. And again, if you have questions, if you have suggestions, if you have requests, feel free to email us or include it in the go-to chat or question section, the go-to question section.
Can you see that?
Yes. So the highlights of the iRecycleSmart campaign are the video and audio public service announcements. We put the most time and energy into the videos. And we have empty and dry was what we settled on as the main message we could put out there for general recycling. Plastic bags were a big problem in a lot of places, but there are jurisdictions that recycle plastic bags, and CalRecycle serves the entire state. So we just, we needed to put out messaging that would let people know that there's more to recycling than they might have realized. And that here's some places where here's a place where you can get information on it. But off the top, emptying, drying, keeping, having your recycling be uncontaminated will help. So we have the digital website and social media posts. So these are just mostly different panels. There's some designed specifically for Instagram, and I think there are a couple of panels. There's a number of different things you can use from if you're just looking for something to put out on your social media that will help some of the general messaging. Next slide. And then the print assets, again, there's bill stuffers, there's flyers, so there's just different things that you can access if you're looking for different print formats. Next slide, please. And then this is the, it looks like this time where your screen is cut off in half again, Christina. What I was trying to figure out. So we have they're placed in what's called out of home, and it's on these shopping carts. We have messaging, and then on it's still cut off, and on the bus tails, the back of buses.
How about now?
Yeah, I can see. It's still, if you want, you can just show your PowerPoint the way you just had it without it being in the showing mode.
Okay.
Then they can see what's coming.
Oh.
How
about here?
Great, perfect, fabulous. Next slide. And so the kitchen and curbside bin stickers, these are really specific to community-based social marketing. One of the main tenets is that you want to have prompts for people. You want to make the behavior easy and simple, and then you want to remind them at the moment where they're taking that behavior. So especially those kitchen stickers, those are, people can put on there whatever they're going to use to collect their food scraps if they are collecting food scraps. Or where they're putting it on their recycling bin. So, so these really, all the stickers could go on the recycling bin, but the rectangular ones are specifically meant for curbside, but any of them could go on your bin at your house. And we thought they turned out pretty cute, so they might be appealing in people's houses too. Next slide. Okay, and then the Spanish assets, everything that we had translated into Spanish. We were very careful we have a member of my staff is bilingual. Spanish is a first language, and she worked with others to make sure that all of the translations were culturally understandable and appropriate as well. And we put a lot of thought into making sure that we did this as well as we could. Next slide, please. So what's to come is the California Climate Food Fight campaign. So that's coming very soon. You saw the first part of it, which is having information on the website. We will provide videos, we will provide radio ads, and we will provide also digital and other assets for you. But the stickers that we've provided already do include some food waste messaging.
Okay, Maria, I'm going to stop sharing my screen that way. And should we go through our 5, 15, and 30s?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is the empty and dry animated video. This is version A. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Empty and dry recycling helps save our planet. Do your part. Recycle smart.
I do my part, I recycle smart. I do my part to save our planet, empty and dry before I can it.
For proper recycling tips, visit iRecycleSmart.com. Do your part. Recycle smart.
I do my part, I recycle smart. Empty dry in the bin, empty dry for the win.
For proper recycling tips, visit iRecycleSmart.com. Do your part. Recycle smart.
Is there another one, Christina, or should we stop showing?
Yes, I'm sorry. I got a message that people are having a hard time hearing it. So
I
was
can
just
hear
trying.
it. I can hear it. I've heard that one person couldn't hear it. I don't know if there's others.
Yeah, so, all right, I'll just keep going. And these are all linked in our toolkit on our website as well.
Empty recycling, then let it dry. Do your part. Recycle smart.
So some of these are really short videos because they're designed to be pre-rolls like on a YouTube. And then the longer videos are meant to be a little bit more detailed and instructional.
I do my part, I recycle smart. I do my part, I recycle smart. I do my part to save our planet, empty and dry before I can it. Empty and dry to save our planet, empty and dry before I can it. Empty and dry, empty and dry, empty and dry.
For more tips on proper recycling, visit iRecycleSmart.com. Do your part. Recycle smart.
Okay, great. And give me just a second to get back to sharing the right thing.
So I wanted to speak to those videos on this song, the jingle, the video. We worked extremely hard. When you're doing advertising, which many of you know, it's very difficult to get people's attention. It's very difficult to get them to absorb your message, and it's very difficult to get them to remember your message. So we worked incredibly hard to get that jingle to a place where we felt like it was catchy, and I've had many people tell me they can't get it out of their head, so I think we succeeded. I keep saying I want it to be catchy and memorable, but not like Baby Shark memorable. So, but either way, if it stays in their head and the message stays in their head, then we've done our job. But I just want to make sure that it's, you know, we wanted to make sure that it was as positive, upbeat as possible. The dancing specifically is designed to be very much like what they do on TikTok. So some of those moves I've seen on TikTok. People are doing the rolling arms that they used to do in the 70s. They're even doing clapping a lot. So a lot of it is very much like if you ever spent some time just kind of scrolling through TikTok, you'll see a lot of those moves. Just we selected the cast very intentionally to be as positive, upbeat, you know, to look like normal people, but to be good dancers that would just sort of speak to the social media mindset of much of our audience. So let's see, next slide. For media relations, I just wanted to let people know, if you hadn't heard, on the organics front, our director, Rachel Mackey-Wagner, has been working very hard. And my team has also been working hard getting her out in the media. She's done almost 40 interviews since the beginning of December. And additionally, she did a tour of the Los Angeles area of a number of different organizations who are taking part in different parts of 1383, from food recovery to community composting to sorting organic waste. So she's been on local TV everywhere from Fresno to, I think, Chico, been on tons of radio, done tons of radio interviews. She's done Fresno and Bakersfield interviews with local newspapers, or at any rate, it's a lot. I couldn't even list all of it, but she didn't say no to anybody for 2 months. She's very busy, and we're having a harder time finding some time for her recently, but we really tried to let the entire state know, and she was just willing to be out there and be the face of food and yard waste recycling, and also letting people know about the food recovery aspect of this law, which has been really exciting. So we're planning to do more media in the future to let people know about the tools that they can find more about their local recycling programs through the new website. Next slide, please. So I'm going to have Christina pop on again and talk to you a little bit about the influencer aspect of this campaign.
Sure. So our social media strategy is broad. You know, in addition to running organic content through the CalRecycle channels, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, we also have content that is being sponsored, meaning that the posts are going to display as an advertisement in people's feeds, regardless of whether they follow CalRecycle or not. And the goal is to increase the reach of these messages. The third thing that we're doing is a influencer campaign, which we're calling a Binfluencer Campaign. And essentially in the social media world, there's a whole new group of influencers, people who influence behavior. Some of them are entertainers, a lot of them are funny. They do a lot of the TikTok dancing. And so we are seeking partnerships and working with folks who have followers with really trusted audiences, meaning that they're not necessarily the Kim Kardashians of the world, but they have a trusted audience who follow them for a specific reason. They might be a chef who is trying to focus on, budgeting or food waste prevention. They might be somebody who is a DIY dad, and so a great voice to talk about how to set up recycling in your home. But because we're using community-based social marketing principles to not just raise awareness that recycling is available and you should do it, but to help people understand how to overcome the obstacles to recycling effectively, and especially the new obstacles that people perceive as they're learning about food waste recycling. We wanted to have people demonstrate in a very authentic way how to recycle smart, how to reduce contamination, how to be a binfluencer, somebody who wants to be an advocate for recycling and educate their friends and family and neighborhood. And then also how to set up food scrap recycling. So how do you use a kitchen bin? Where do you put it? Is it under the sink? Is it on top of the countertop? And really giving people a chance to hear from a voice that they already trust, to really expand the reach. So this campaign is going to launch in mid-April. Our social media content is already running, but we'll start to see new voices that are going to be spreading the messages as well. In large campaigns like this, you often have a community engagement program. It's a little tricky when you're in a pandemic because there aren't as many community events available to get out and talk to the public. So this was a good alternative for us to explore, really targeting people where they're at and along channels and audiences that are already trusted and established. So
I'm going to ask you, I was going to say I was going to ask you to do this one too.
Sure. So we've had a few questions about how to use the materials and what the guidelines are. So on our website, on our toolkit page, you're going to find two links. One of the links are instructions, and it's going to break down for you how to use the different tools. Some of them are just a simple, quick download. Some of them, especially for the digital advertisements or the social media content, are things that need a little bit of instruction. So if you are working with a digital marketing company or you're used to scheduling your own content, you'll have some clear instructions there. In addition to that, we've worked with our legal team and we've put together some guidelines for jurisdictions and haulers to use the materials that we've developed. We want to make sure that these are as accessible as possible to jurisdictions. So I won't get into all of the details, but I'll just give you kind of a quick overview. Essentially, if you want to run the campaign messages as they are, jurisdictions and haulers in California are allowed to do that. You can co-brand with us by adding, your local hauler or local jurisdiction logo to the materials. They all need to redirect to iRecycleSmart.com. If you would like to use our logo or our turtle mascot or our taglines, our slogans, do your part, recycle smart, those are all things that you'll need to apply to use a license with. So in those guidelines, you're going to find an application. It's a very simple application. It's basically your contact information, as well as a description of how you intend to use it, as well as samples of your artwork, so that we can get a sense for how you are hoping to use that. But again, our desire is to partner with jurisdictions and haulers and to enable and empower you to use this brand so that it just becomes a really strong brand. Like I mentioned, the logo is here on the left, and that can be added to different local materials. And then Turner can be used in conjunction with CalRecycle's logo. Okay, so jurisdictions, we are here to support you. This is the first of several webinars, and we do plan to continue scheduling them. So we would love to hear from you. We'll be sending a survey out at the end of this webinar and asking for your input and feedback on what would be helpful to you. So we plan on holding some future trainings on things like social media. So this could be everything from, social media one-on-one. We know a lot of jurisdictions, the education and outreach staff are multitaskers, meaning that this is not their only job. So we wanted to support jurisdictions with basic training on social media, as well as how to use the resources that we're providing. Also paid media training with Runyon Saltzman, our contractor, and some of our other subcontractors can provide media training support. So this is everything from, how to, schedule advertising contracts. And then I think probably the most key thing is, what would be a recommendation for maximizing your local budget? So, with this campaign for the entire state, the whole contract is $15 million. We're spending about, more than 10 in the actual placement of all of the advertising. But obviously, at the local level, budgets may range from $50,000 to $1 million. So we do plan on providing some templates and outlines and guidelines on, if you have this much to spend, you may consider spending it this way or that way, or depending on your objectives and your goals and your past efforts, we have some recommendations that we can make as well. So we're really interested in what would be of most valuable to you. We also have, public and media relations support and training that we can provide as well. Those are all the agendas and trainings are being developed, so your input is very welcome. We're also going to be developing additional assets throughout the campaign. This campaign is going to run through the beginning of 2023. So if you have additional materials that you're interested in, please let us know, and we'd be happy to discuss how we could make those available. And I just kind of mentioned this, but what kind of additional trainings in the future we're interested in hearing from you. And that brings our presentation to an end. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and get to our question section so that I can field some questions. So give me just a moment to get there.
I don't see any questions in the questions section or in the email.
So I'm seeing a few questions here in the question section of GoToWebinar.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, so we have quite a few questions for media placements and essentially where and when. So essentially the where and the when is really dependent on the channel. So what I can say is that all of our digital content is running across the state. We have, just gathering an answer to this question, we do have our radio live in English and in Spanish in all markets. Digital is statewide and live in all markets in English and in Spanish. We do have our out of home that's going to start running at the end of March. We have that running in the Bay Area, Northern California, Central and Southern California. So that's kind of the big picture on the where and the when. Okay, well done. Curious why loose wasn't part of the messaging, as plastic bags and bagged recyclables are major contaminants. We message heavily on empty, dry, and loose, with no plastic bags in the blue bin. So I believe Maria touched on this a little bit, but that loose is a message that we opted not to address directly in our advertisements. One thing to consider is what Maria mentioned earlier. This is a statewide campaign with universal messages directing people to our website. And our website is where we're getting into some more of the nuances. So one thing that we are trying to do is add as much detail as possible to our website and directing people to check locally. So plastic bags are collected and in some places directed in certain parts of the state. So we include plastic bags under the not usually recyclable and curbside bins, but we do direct people to check locally.
And we understand your concern, and unfortunately, it's not comprehensive across all jurisdictions that loose is a message that everybody wants. There's a policy decision.
Okay, next question. For the local recycling information list, how do you choose where to link? Several jurisdictions have specific recycling and disposal dedicated websites that are not linked, and it goes to more general. So this information, and can we submit suggestions? Please submit suggestions to us about where you would like us to link. We gathered this information from our local assistance team, who gathered it from recycling coordinators. So if you'd like to make an update, we would be happy to do that. Did we use machine translation or human translation for our materials? We used human translation. We have both a contract within CalRecycle and as a part of this contract for human translation.
Additionally, as I mentioned before, we have a member of our public affairs staff who is bilingual and Spanish is a first language. And she really put a mind to making sure that translations were all culturally appropriate, culturally understandable, and she worked with others on the campaign who are on part of the contractor to really discuss all of that, and including the song. There was quite a lot of time and thought put in to make sure that the song and even who was singing the song would have the highest cultural impact and sensitivity.
Okay, thank you. Who can you contact to correct and update the jurisdiction contacts? Feel free to email us at iRecycleSmart@calrecycle.ca.gov, and we'll put that email up at the end. I'm seeing some comments in here about some specific material questions, so I'll follow up on those individually. Are the flyers in Spanish? Everything that's currently translated is in the folders. I believe the flyers that you're referring to, we just approved in English yesterday, so they should be uploaded in Spanish by the end of this week. So as soon as assets are approved in English, we immediately get them over into translation, review, and then published. For toolkit assets, are we able to get the source files, and are we able to add our own agency's logo on the artwork as well? If you would like to have source files and add logos, you'll need to submit an application for a license, and then we would be happy to provide source files for you.
It's a very simple application.
Yes. Will CalRecycle provide stickers to cities? We are providing digital files of stickers to cities that they can then choose to download and print themselves.
And part of this is an intentional decision because we want to make sure that we're not printing things that don't get used and add to the waste stream. So we just want to make sure that for anyone who wants them, that they can print them themselves, how many they feel that they need.
Yes. Okay, we've got a couple of technical comments here that we'll follow up on. Are Bay Area jurisdictions participating in the campaign? Yes, we are running messaging in the Bay Area. I can see another comment. I can see the turtle and voice of the turtle resonating with kids in schools. We can too. How important is it to rinse and dry recyclables, considering most glass is broken down when it hits the ground at MRFs and tin cans are smashed? This is a great question. Again, this speaks to how universally applicable messaging is. So we actually don't direct people to rinse their recyclables. We direct people to empty and dry them. Most glass, it depends on the facility, but some glass is intentionally broken. Some glass is intentionally not broken. So our goal is to remove as much liquid and food residue from materials for several reasons. The primary one is to ensure that paper and cardboard materials are clean and dry and able to be recycled. And then secondarily, making sure that the types of materials that include food and liquid in them to begin with are clean enough to be recycled, especially with national SORD and exporting contamination standards. That was also a high priority.
And additionally, from what I've been told, and I'm sure many of you are more expert at it than I am, but from what I've been told, when there's contamination on recyclables, it can be recycled into the recyclables. So especially with plastic, if there's gunk or some kind of a fluid other than water on it, that could end up being recycled into the plastic. And given that plastic and glass are all mixed together, just minimizing that contamination, we were told from many sectors it will be helpful. And that's why there's so many jurisdictions who are specifically messaging either clean and dry or empty and dry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what messaging was contemplated for those challenging bioplastics that don't go in the recycling bin?
So again, we're just sending people to local programs.
Great. Another question about missing links to specific areas of the state. Please email iRecycleSmart@calrecycle.ca.gov, and we'll be happy to add your local recycling information. Will ads be available in other languages like Chinese? We have not translated ads yet into other languages. Depending on, we would be happy to. So if you'd like to follow up with us by email and let us know what you're interested in, we are more than happy to translate materials into other languages. Depending on how a jurisdiction may use them, it will help us prioritize the resources to translate if you can be really specific for us.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, we cannot do the jingle in another language, and we won't have the videos in another language, but we can have any print or digital materials translated and have versions in other languages. And I'm assuming you mean Mandarin, but Cantonese is also a Chinese language.
Yes, and just to clarify too that when we do translate materials for prints, as Maria mentioned, we can be as diverse as needed. With the social media content, what we have found, and in consultation with our PR firm, Edelman, many recycling education and outreach social media channels put content out in multiple languages on the same channel rather than having dedicated channels. But if there's a way for us to help support that, we would be happy to translate, our digital ads and our social media content as well. Those are all static images that we can just quickly change text on. A question about what is an expert survey? This is referencing our research. An expert survey was something we conducted early on as we narrowed down the scope of what we wanted to address with key messages. We started by interviewing jurisdictions, haulers, and MRF operators throughout the state, as well as members of the statewide Commission on Recycling and other stakeholders to really solicit feedback and input on what were the top contaminants across the state, as well as getting a sense of what is being collected as a recyclable material throughout the state. So we conducted a written survey that we sent out and gathered information so that we could really be specific with what we wanted to ask residents to do that would benefit the recycling system as a whole.
And I also want to say, whenever you're doing something like that, there's always going to be a sense of, well, how was that selected? It was in many ways random. We absolutely couldn't query over 400 jurisdictions or all the different MRFs and waste haulers. So we had to have representation from different regions, different types of markets, things like that.
Okay, I saw one of the bus tail ads here in LA County, looked good. We're excited to hear that. Yes, we will put the email address back up. Let me see if I can just do that now for you.
It's pretty easy. It's iRecycleSmart at calrecycle.ca.gov. So if you have any other web email addresses for someone from CalRecycle, you just put the name of the website on the front.
Will these videos be made available to the schools? They are available in our toolkit as MP4s. And then we also have them, they'll be made available on our YouTube channel this week as well.
And we are considering what we can do for schools. That we really absorbed what we heard from our focus groups, that so many of them learned about recycling from their schools, or their children came home from school and taught them. Children are ambassadors for many environmental and health messages. And so we want to be able to provide support to the schools. CalRecycle in general is working on ways to have a green certification program for schools. And I see this as being a part of that, but also being available in other ways. We also oversee the Environmental Education Initiative curriculum, which my office is now over, and we put it out to teachers through that social media as well.
Great. Do you have an idea of rough costs for out-of-home ads? That sounds interesting. Wondering how targeted the ads could be for residents in unincorporated areas versus incorporated. That's a great question, and one that I don't have an answer to at my fingertips, but we can definitely follow up with you. And this can be a part of the conversation in a future webinar about potential pricing. You know, because we're buying everything in bulk across the entire state and multiple markets, I'm not sure that even the prices that we were securing would be great representations. But we do know that this type of messaging is effective through these channels. And like you're pointing out, especially in certain types of markets. Okay, it looks like we have some issues with the links on our toolkit page. So I'm going to go back and take a look at that to make sure that we have a link to our video section. Feedback from San Diego, thank you. I'm excited for this new statewide campaign. Looks excellent. That's exciting, thank you. When do you anticipate the food and organics messaging may be available?
We can tell you it's coming. We intentionally put this as the second part because there's so many jurisdictions statewide who are just working on getting those programs up and running. As of January 1st, our reports were that about half of the state had their programs up and running. So we will get you that together as soon as we have it complete. And we're again looking at making it similar in attention getting, fun, and just getting a clean message out there, that since this is information that's new to so much of the state. We are looking at connecting the climate fight to food, and we're calling it California's climate food fight.
Yes. Okay. Another question about translation, requests for Arabic. Yes, absolutely. We will have the ability to translate into any languages on request. Again, iRecycleSmart at CalRecycle.ca.gov.
So if you want those translations, please submit that to us with exactly what you want translated. And then once it's translated, we'll make it available to everybody.
Will they have subtitles? I'm thinking you're talking about the videos. Our videos on YouTube will have subtitles embedded, and we will provide subtitle files as well. So yes, they will have subtitles.
They'll be captioned in terms of ADA compliance. If you're looking for subtitles in other languages, we were not planning to do that. I don't know if it's something that we could do. If there are certain languages that have a great demand, we might be able to do some versions that have captions, since we do that already for other things. But just let us know what your request is. We want to support you as much as possible. We want to reach California's diverse communities.
Yes. Okay, great looking campaign. We were trying to come up with a mascot for schools. Turner will work perfectly. We will apply for the license prior to use. That is great feedback. We really appreciate that. That is wonderful.
My direction was we need to make this turtle as cute as humanly possible.
Yes.
So I'd say bigger eyes, bigger head, more toddler-like.
Okay, so thank you so much. We've had a couple of additional comments coming in. Great presentation, very informative. Thank you so much. As we mentioned, it's iRecycleSmart at calrecycle.ca.gov. And I don't see any other questions coming in. So we'll just give it another minute. Maria, do you have some closing thoughts?
I just want to reiterate that we are here to support you. We want California's recycling to be as efficient and effective as possible. And we really want to do everything in our power to get the organics message out there, to let people know that recycling their food scraps specifically is an important part of California's climate fight. So we will get that portion complete as soon as possible. The creative process can be slower than we expect, so I hesitate to give a time, but we are anticipating April. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you have suggestions for types of assets you'd like, for if you have requests for different languages, for things that could be helpful to you in the future, please let us know. We had a very early comment about the why of empty and dry, so we immediately had someone on our team put together a video on that specifically, and we branded it with the different aspects of the campaign. So we're scrambling. We're going as fast as we can. We're working weekends and nights to get this as strong as possible, as clean and polished and appealing as possible, and really speaking to the concerns, the issues, and the values of California. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we want to help you to make California recycling and California food and yard waste recycling as successful as possible. Thank you so much. Oh, we're over, so sorry about that.
That's okay. I think we plan to end at 4:30. So
Oh, okay. So that was
two final comments. How would CalRecycle feel about a jurisdiction making a mascot costume? I'll direct you over to our guidelines that we mentioned. In the guidelines, you'll see that permission will not be granted to create a costume for Turner or to voice Turner in radio spots, podcasts, or live events. And we did get your another comment about coloring pages for Earth Day for kids. So we will add that to our list of things to consider developing. And then with
sorry, I wanted to say, if you have any kind of radio or audio that you want to do, reach out and let us know your idea. With the mascot costume thing, I just always feel so terrible for those people, the person that's in the costume, especially if it's a Sacramento or a California summer. But we appreciate that interest very much, and I know our now retired Recycle Rex did have someone who wore a costume, and if it's something you feel very strongly about, feel free to shoot me an email.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And we will just draw a close to our webinar today. Thank you for attending. Continue tuning into our emails for future webinar information. And I think that's it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Recycle
you.
Smart. Bye-bye.